better, do better, and ultimately live better. It's the weekly talk show where we talk about things that can enhance your life, improve your everyday existence, and give you knowledge on things that can help you. Today we're back at International Students, and we're talking about finding funding. I'm having a young man who's finding over $200,000 to fund his education. A young man just like you. The only difference is he went looking for funding and he knows some things that we can learn. Today, we're talking with Jeremy. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm very good, Nigel. Thank you
Great.
for inviting me.
Now, tell me a little bit of if it's a myth or a reality that there's funding out there that people can access.
I think it might be a little bit of both. It's a myth because there's funding out there that people don't know about.
Okay.
But it could be a reality that there may not be enough for everyone that's looking. So
okay.
it's hard to tell. I was, fortunate to find something. So I can only speak for myself.
And that's what we wanted to talk about because you were able to find something. You were able to find funding. And for an international student, you were able to find funding.
Yes.
And that's where we have this big juxtaposition because a lot of people tell international students and tell people who want to come to school in the United States, it's difficult, you're not going to find money. What can you say to counter that argument?
Well, where there's a will, there's a way, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to be willing to ask for help. Go to the library, get books, and do some research.
Okay.
I think it also helps to know what you want to study because once you know what you want to study, you can narrow in on what types of funding are available for those particular fields and subjects.
Okay.
And we could talk about my field if you'd like. But
that's critical because if you can talk like that, or if you can talk about funding like that, it tells me that there's a path that we can follow.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit on the where you look, how you look, what to do part of this whole funding your educational dreams. Because, some time ago I interviewed a young lady who had over $250,000 in funding.
Okay.
That was an international student too. So here we hear from you that you have been able to find over $200,000. Where did you start out and what was your first step? Back to Reaching Up, we're here talking about finding scholarships to go to school here in the United States of America. And we're talking to a young man who came to the United States as an international student and was able to find almost 100% of his tuition in scholarships. Jeremy, where do you start as the first step in the planning stages?
Well, going back to taking those standardized tests, once you start taking the test, at the end of the test, you can check off all the boxes for the colleges that you want to receive mail from.
Okay.
If you haven't taken the test, if you're still in your home country, I would say use the internet and apply online. Ask for information and emails. And I think that's a great way to start. You start by establishing relationships with universities that you're interested in. And they do a lot of the work. They really try hard to recruit students in America.
For your undergrad, what types of scholarships were you able to find?
Well, in addition to the scholarship for doing well on the test, I was able to find scholarships for athletics.
Okay.
I joined the track club. Okay. That gave me $2,000 for a semester. I was able
per semester?
For that semester that I was in the track club.
Yeah.
And I decided to focus more on academics after a year. But that was one scholarship. Another scholarship is merit scholarships.
Okay.
If you do well,
yeah,
if you get a good GPA your first year, they'll give you money because they want you to stay there, and they're rewarding good grades. So I think good grades is one of the sure ways to get something.
Yeah. So basically, once you take the SAT, you do outstanding, you take the GRE, you do outstanding, definitely you'll get yourself funding for
You'll get some funding for sure. Yeah, it's in this country they really try to make sure that people who are doing well stay there.
And that's a good thing. So you wanted to focus on taking the exams.
Right.
What types of organizations can they look for if they're looking for organizational funding or merit-based funding?
I think NGOs are good, especially for international students. NGO being something like the World Bank, regional banks. I'm from the Caribbean. The Organization of American States is one place. churches or NGOs. So look for if you attend a church or some sort of civic organization, they may give you a scholarship for being a part of that organization. And professional societies. If you're an engineering major, the engineering society may have money for you.
Great, and that's so good to learn. But you got most of your graduate funding as school-based funds.
Yes, yes.
How does that work? Could you share with us?
Yeah, well, the main thing is that once they accept you, they're taking the responsibility for you.
Okay.
Your advisor gets money from the National Science Foundation, in my case, or big funding agency, government funding agencies. The money they get from applying for grants is used to cover their graduate students and the research itself.
Okay.
Private industry also provides money. Some of that money, however, is limited to U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
So from my recollection, most of my money came directly from my advisor.
Okay. So your advisor found money for you to go through school.
Exactly.
Were there any hiccups or were there any roadblocks that you had to deal with, and how did you manage those?
In graduate school?
Yeah.
Not really. Getting in, as I said, was 90% of the battle. Getting the good recommendations.
Okay.
And getting a decent score on the GRE, and of course having a good GPA as an undergrad. I find that a lot of international students who are coming here for graduate school are usually ones that have done well in their home country.
And that's so good to know, because a lot of people, they would send me email all the time saying, you know, I am at this college, I graduate in December, or I graduate in May, where should I look, or what should I do? And I say to them all the time, prepare for the GRE, prepare for the TOEFL. Because it's so important that you have the baseline requirements.
Yes. But I would also say, again, as I said, establish relationships with the universities themselves.
Okay.
For graduate school, establish relationships with potential advisors.
Okay.
So if you want to work with this person who's doing this type of research, email them directly.
Yeah.
Say, I want to be your student. I've done well in undergrad. I've taken some of the courses. And they will, you know, if they're interested in you, they'll take the responsibility to help you find money or help you get over here.
Beautiful.
So it's established relationships is important.
And that's critical to hear, because throughout all of this time, you're saying, you know what, build for yourself networks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
the critical thing is networking.
Absolutely.
What about your personal profile? How can you enhance your profile to make a strong application?
Well, it's been many years since I've been in school. So at the time, there was no Facebook, there was no LinkedIn, there was no social networking. But for those students who want to go to school now, you can use that. You can use something like LinkedIn.
Okay.
And establish networks that way.
So at what age did you graduate, Jeremy?
I got my PhD at 24.
Wow. So you see that? $200,000 at age 24 to pay for school.
Yes.
And isn't that amazing? To know the day and age in which we can live and the things that we can do. So how did you manage to make your profile so strong that you won these scholarships? What did you do to stand out?
Primarily academic excellence.
Academic excellence.
If you don't have a very, very strong academic background, you can still do well by establishing relationships and leveraging maybe your work experience.
Okay.
There are many people, international students, that have worked, you know, with engineering companies, for example, oil fields, and I didn't have that experience to leverage, so I had to leverage my GPA. If you have whatever you have, try to leverage it.
Okay. We'll be right back, and we'll continue talking with Jeremy, a young man who got his PhD at age 24 and got over $200,000 in scholarships.